probably a kind of a ghoulish fascination. Yes. Yes.
The historic period you have kind of intrigues me because practically contemporaneous with this guy, there was a mining engineer in eastern Kentucky, John C.C. Mayo, who wasn't robbing graves, but he was robbing mineral rights. And he also had kind of a anthropological fascination. And the similarity, you have this kind of outback, lawless kind of area, which eastern Kentucky was at the time also. And
was that war?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hatfields and McCoys and all
Yeah.
that. And kind of, in both cases, it's kind of, here we have this nation that has reached the geographic limits of its expansion, and now we're burrowing underground to discover part of who we are. I think the parallel, I mean, it's essentially, it's not just they stumbled across a grave, but rather there's something of a national project here, defining who we are.
I think that you know, to go on a little bit from Jacqueline's question to yours, is that it kind of fills in the history of anthropology in a way, and it kind of is a reckoning with that history, rather than kind of a blustering kind of, you know, glossing over it and sort of coming to understand. And you know, I don't think that this particular story is all that popular. I think it's interesting in and of itself, although I wouldn't talk about it, but I don't think it will be any sort of heralded thing for the National Museum, although I think we need to kind of deal with these cases and think about them and the foundations of our project today have as in so many accounts of the time are like this. I don't think it's particularly new, but I think it's an interesting twist in that it rose out of a kind of a need of the network today, and these individuals come back out again, deceased as they may be, to once again talk about power, which is really what all of this is about.
Your story anchors on the year when the American Anthropological Association was formed.
Is that 1905?
1902.
1902. That's Lumholt publication.
Yes, Sam, your presentation made me reflect on the meaning that people assign, the interpretations that they give to acts of humans, such as this one, right? If that situation had happened, and it has happened in the U.S. against or involving Native American people, it becomes a big issue in Native American culture in the U.S. They're an invisible minority. But it happened in Mexico, which has a very dominant, large, historically grounded Native American population. The Mexican government has said, well, it's no big deal, nothing big deal. When it happened in Puerto Rico, and I don't know if you read about it, they were excavating for a hotel. They found a skeleton of a Native American, and now everybody wants a piece of that skeleton. Everybody, and now it becomes a question of how many genes do Puerto Ricans have of Native American culture. They start calculating. And now there was an article on that on the Journal of Human Biology. I looked all over creation for that article. It was published at Wayne State. I finally found it.
There's an interesting kind of footnote to this whole story, and it won't be a footnote, it's probably another section. I didn't get to tell you, but when we sat down to talk about this, because the people, I was a contractor. I was operating in a way that I really enjoyed for once, instead of being the Smithsonian guy and basically the government guy, carrying the load, so to speak. I became a scientist, a researcher who could just provide information. It's not as simple as that, but part of the thing was to talk to the Mexican anthropological and historical institutional authorities about returning these remains, because that was the objective of the Indian Museum. And I told you a little bit about the reaction, but I didn't tell you about the reaction. I stayed after the visits of the bigwigs to the site, etc. I stayed for another 3 weeks trying to get an idea of who some of the descendants might be. So I traveled extensively along the Continental Divide in the state of Chihuahua and also, hard to get to, the state of Sonora. And one of the interactions was quite typical. I met with let's call him Don Enrique. And he was the leader of a small village of Pima Bajo in the mountains. And I went to talk with him, and it was very hard to find. It took 2 days to find this guy. And we finally got him to sit down with us, and he insisted that we come and sit down in the plaza and talk with him. And he had some of the people, but he also went over to the school, and he got the teachers to bring 40 or 50 kids over to be part of the interaction as well. So we asked him about these remains. We asked him in front of the kids and everything. And what do you think his response was? Well, I was there there was one, there had to be someone to watch me. So that I was there with an archaeologist of Ina. And Don Enrique told us that that's a really good thing that you're doing. I want you to work with these people from Ina and do the right thing and do what should be done. And I said, Don Enrique, do you know anything about this? There was a cliff dwelling within vision of us. And I said, don't you know anything about this? Can't you tell us a little bit more about the people who lived up there? And he told me, I don't know anything about that. I never go there. He'd been there his entire life. He was a man of the earth. And so you can see that it's very difficult to go home for these individuals because there are many barriers to simply closing the circle. There are barriers that are innumerable, even when you know exactly where they go.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. You know, in all this presentation, one and the most important voice is missing. It is a case of anthropology of death, anthropologie de la mort. Professor Thomas has written a book on that. You know what is missing? The voice of the Indian. What the natives said about their dead. The same way you have found things related where these people were living, they have that. You must have somewhere, this is something about the dead. And I don't accept, please, I don't accept the Mexican government. He is a Western government. He's Western like the others. And or American government or Peruvian government, I don't accept them to come and talk in the name of the Indian. Their dead are objects. This is really something disgusting. The Mexican government said they are dead, the dead are objects, and we don't know what the Indian said. Maybe I was absent-minded and I did not understand what you were saying. Maybe, so could you elaborate what would be...
No, it's a good point, Garan. I didn't cover that well. I kind of lost it a bit with some of the early ethnographic accounts from people like Lumholtz. But there's a lot of information that could be garnered from numerous studies. Of course, people don't really like you coming around and studying their death rituals today. It's a little bit different context for research today in that respect. But in fact, there's a great deal of information. We know a lot about the burial of these individuals and what might have gone on during the burial of these individuals because we have accounts, after all, this all was taking place in the early 1900s, of bone handlers and mortuary people that could speak directly to your question, but I didn't highlight that as much as probably would have benefited you in this